selections will be the biggest hits in the 1988 NFL Draft? Will there be anyone like the Juice in the late 60s? This #1 pick became the #1 man to reach the 2,000-yard plateau. O.J. Simpson dashed through the ice and snow for the Bills, darted past defenders, and had everybody in Buffalo dancing in the streets. Sometimes greatness comes from schools off the beaten path. And the Bears, by discovering Jackson State and a running back named Walter Payton, truly were blessed. There was nobody better than Sweetness when it came time to dance to the music. Can the hits come in the 12th round? No question. The Raiders found linebacker Rod Martin there, and long before he was a Super Bowl hero, it was clear that he should have been taken higher. Maybe the choice will be a real hard rocker like Lawrence Taylor of the Giants, one of only 2 defensive players to be named MVP for a season. LT is more than tough enough. Atlanta is hoping fellow linebacker Andre Bruce is tough enough. We know he's the top choice, but who will follow on the 1988 hit parade? We're about to find out as the NFL Draft is underway. You are looking live at the Marriott Marquis Hotel in New York City, where hopefully we will be live for the next 7 hours. Hi, everybody. I'm Chris Berman, and welcome to the 53rd National Football League. They'll call it the selection meeting. We call it the draft. The crowd is ready. We're ready here at ESPN. It's the first time the draft has been on Sunday, and today it goes, for the first time in 5 years, I should say 6 years, the draft goes back to a 2-day affair. They probably will go 4 or 5 rounds today. No round can start after 9 o'clock, but we'll be on with you till 7 o'clock Eastern time, and then they'll have the rest of the selections tomorrow. Now, as we get set, it should be a draft that will see many running backs, some outstanding wide receivers, and as we'll talk a little bit later on with our panel of experts, we could be seeing half of the first round consist of running backs and wide receivers, which should be interesting to you folks who follow college football because you've heard the names of these players for 3 or 4 years. The Lorenzo Whites, the Thurman Thomases, you know about these guys. The Tim Browns, the Michael Irvins, and so it will be not a quarterback draft, but a draft of many skill players. But at the top of the list, we're going to go defense. We already know about the first draft pick. He's Andre Bruce, linebacker from Auburn, and he was selected by the Atlanta Falcons and already signed, sealed, delivered. He's yours. The second pick, well, as you know, earlier in the week, the Kansas City Chiefs made a deal with Detroit. They swapped positions. The Chiefs went from 3 to 2, and Detroit made out like a bandit because they only dropped 1 position to 3 overall, and they come up with Kansas City's second-round pick. But the Chiefs wanted to take the player that they've been eyeing, and we anticipate that's Neil Smith. But we now anticipate the
NFL selection meeting is now in session. First selection, the first round, Atlanta Falcons.
Pause for dramatic effect.
Atlanta selects Andre Bruce, linebacker Auburn.
And what a surprise, right? You never saw the Falcons even use the phone. How do they do that? Andre Bruce, seasoned man at 6'5", 6'6", can fly like the wind. At outside linebacker, weighs 235 pounds. Speed, perhaps, of a defensive back. Very strong player. The young man from Montgomery, Alabama, had 8 sacks this last year as a senior, 3 interceptions, 1 which he returned for a touchdown. He is a guy that they hope can be an impact player along the lines of Lawrence Taylor. The way it goes these days, when most of the teams play a 3-4 defense, the big sacks come from the outside linebackers, and that is what Atlanta would hope Andre Bruce can bring them for about the next 10 years. He also can run, as you can see, returning the INT for a touchdown. And so the Atlanta Falcons have picked a guy that we have rated on the top of our board, and they had rated on the top of theirs. We added up, we rate 4 different categories depending on the player, and you'll be getting familiar with these as the day goes on. A possible, the top possible grade would be a 20, and it would be 19-2 for Andre Bruce. And so now as we move to my immediate left, Tom Jackson, and to my far left, Paul Zimmerman, our own good doctor, Dr. Z. Can Andre Bruce be an impact player, Paul? Well, I'll tell you what. We'll answer that question shortly. Here's the commissioner.
Kansas City selects on the first round Neil Smith, defensive end, Nebraska.
All right, so Neil Smith, as expected, goes to the Kansas City Chiefs. That's what they made the deal for. Now let's go back first to Andre Bruce. Can he be an intimidator?
I don't see him as a Lawrence Taylor or Cornelius Bennett. Those guys, when you saw them in college, the motor was going all the time. This guy takes one play off every now and then. He doesn't have the consistency. Of course, I'm the only one that has questions about him. Everybody else loves him.
Mr. Outside Linebacker. What do you think of Bruce?
Well, I think that inconsistency that Z alludes to, taking a play off every now and then, I think that can be conditioned. I think when you get to the pro level and you're making the $1 million salary plus, I think that he will tend to get consistent. Camp will do that for him. What I would worry about is a guy like this going to a team that he's not gonna make the Atlanta Falcons a good football team. And so I think what he's got to do is guard against getting lackadaisical over those first couple of years when he's going to have to struggle with a team that's going to struggle.
Well, this is the first draft for Ken Herrock, who now calls the shots as far as player personnel goes down with the Atlanta Falcons. And last year, what were some of the many problems with the Atlanta Falcons? Yeah, they had the worst record in football. 17 quarterback sacks last season. You should have that in a month if you're a good NFL team. And so now we have Andre Bruce going to the Falcons. Falcons need a player just about everywhere, and they feel that they might as well start with Bruce. Look for Atlanta to try and make a deal to get up in the last third or maybe the last half of this opening round. They certainly would like one of those top 5 receivers. They'll take number 5 if they can get up to maybe about 16 or 17. Let's move on to Neil Smith, fellas, because here's a guy that comes from Nebraska, Zim, that can play really all 4 positions on the line, although the Chiefs probably look at him outside, right?
Well, I talked to the Chiefs about him. He's a good sacker. He's a slender guy, runs a 4.58. And I can see him as an open side pass rusher, but they're looking to replace Art Still, who plays the power side, the left side. And I said, can he play, is he sturdy enough to play there? And they said, oh, yeah, we think he can, put on a little weight and fill in. So he's the answer to what they want.
So Neil Smith, Tommy, goes the division that you know full well, the AFC West. The Chiefs did have some great players there, and Still and Bell, but they're not what they once were. Neil Smith, the man, is a huge wingspan.
I met him last night for the first time, and it made me know why I retired from football.
He 65 tackles last year, 7.5 sacks for Nebraska. And remember, not everybody in the Big 8 spends their life passing all the time. They list him at 6'4", 257. Was a defensive tackle there, but as we say, he can play anywhere along the line. Probably will be used on the outside because Bill Moss, who was the last player that they selected in the first round, defensive player back in '84, the Pro Bowl nose tackle, certainly anchors that right there. So as he grades out, we total up the same thing as Andre Bruce, 19.2, quickness of 5.0. And a guy that size, that quick, is that scary.
Great lateral movement. Reminds me a lot of Art Still, that physical specimen that he is. And I think he's going to dominate on his side of the ball. A great choice for the Kansas City Chiefs.
We knew that Bruce would be one. Smith was a lock also. And now the fun begins as the Detroit Lions are up with the 3rd overall pick next. The draft continues in a moment.
I don't know whether to begin without him. I'm sure he's just sitting in that awful traffic.
Steve, in his new 190 class Mercedes, sitting in traffic. Oh, sure. He's sitting there in line, drumming his fingers on the steering wheel, tapping his foot, fiddling with the radio stations, staring at the taillights of the car in front of him. Marie, I've commuted with Steve.
What's that supposed to mean?
Well, it means... That's what it means.
It's not just another credit card. It's the exciting new Citibank NFL Visa card that's different from any credit card you've ever carried or seen. It makes a statement that football is your sport and shows the world your favorite NFL team. Join the team. Call 1-800-NFL-VISA for a free tryout. The membership fee will be waived for the first 6 months. And get this, a 20% savings on authentic NFL Pro Line gear that you charge to your card. It's the real thing, exactly what NFL players and coaches wear. And Every time you use your card, you earn points you can redeem for free NFL Pro Line gear. Plus, just by being a Citibank NFL Visa card member, you're automatically entered in our Super Bowl 23 sweepstakes. Enjoy all the exclusive privileges and the fun that goes along with this card. Get on the phone now. Call 1-800-NFL-VISA to apply and join the team.
Round of lights here?
The right choice. And by the Hartford, the insurance people of ITT. Welcome back to New York and the 53rd NFL Draft. We're not the only fellas here that will be watching the proceedings today. Let's go over to our guys who man the big board, Bob Lee and Mel Kiper.
All right, Chris, there's a big board downtown at Wall Street. It plots and charts the fortunes of the economy. And Mel Kiper's put together his big board of 40 top players. We're going to talk about Detroit, which right now has 850 to go to their selection. Picked up our first rumor of the day, though, Mel. Possibly the Rams looking to move up from their 14th spot. Go where the Giants are going out of the 10 hole and pick up Michael Irvin, wide receiver. It's a report, it's a rumor. We'll see if that eventuates. Detroit.
Well, Detroit, they made that great move moving down one spot, picking up that second-round choice. Benny Blades was fitting extremely well here as an impact defender. Offensive coordinators have to change their game plan just with him being on the field. So I think Benny Blades here would be an outstanding choice.
We've heard talk about the quality of the draft. Some people have talked it down. Some people may want to talk it down. Well, for job security, if you're a player personnel guy, if things don't pan out. Also for economic reasons, because you've heard the story about Neil Smith, the difficulties he's having because the present-day value being put on his contract. You've been saying for years there are no bad drafts, just bad drafters.
I really believe that. They're only talking basically about the first round when they talk about bad drafts. And if you look back to '83, we had the 6 franchise quarterbacks. You put those 6 franchise quarterbacks in this draft, all of a sudden it goes to an outstanding year. But I really believe the depth at certain positions, particularly when you look at the running back spot, you look at wide receiver, you look at that defensive backfield position, and even if you look at the offensive line, 5, maybe 6 on round 1. So I think overall it's a strong 2nd to 5th round draft. And I think if you look, there's no glamour quarterbacks, there's no franchise receivers, but overall I think it's a very underrated draft.
So you wouldn't say that as good as we have it in the wide receiver category, these wide receivers aren't going to make the same kind of impact that the quarterbacks class of '83 made?
Those 3 receivers at the top, the Browns, the Sharps, the Irvins, can have the same impact that a Tune, a Rice, and a Brown had, and they can go back to the Chandler, Jefferson, and Lofton days. This is an outstanding core of receivers. There's no question all 3 of these guys can have an immediate impact in the NFL, particularly Irvin, because he comes from that ultimate pro-style attack at Miami.
We're waiting the 3rd pick in the first round already. As predicted, Andre Bruce has the signed contract. No drama there. Neil Smith taken by Kansas City. Detroit picking 3rd in the draft. They flip-flop with Kansas City. Let's talk about the Lions. They've got less than 7 minutes to make their selection. Jerry Venisi coming over from the Chicago Bears. We'll talk about this yesterday. He may take the long-term view of how to do this. Darryl Rogers, the coach, he's got to win. He's got to win now. It's maybe a little surprising to some people he's going to be back to coach this team at the beginning of the '88 season because the Lions have not played well.
Well, they really haven't. And when you look at the Lions, they have a lot of needs. That's why Jerry, I think, was smart by moving down. When you talk about, picking up that second-round choice, which is almost like a first-round choice, the 29th player overall. They didn't lose anything. They moved down to that 3 spot. Now they can move down again if they want. If they want to take Blades, fine. Blades is, like we talked about, an impact player that they probably could have considered with the second choice. But this is a situational type thing where Kansas City just happened to feel like the Raiders would trade up to get Smith. They knew that the Raiders were offering a second-round pick as well. And to move up, you're talking about to move down 1 position and pick up the 29th player for a team like Detroit, an outstanding move. For Kansas City, a team that needs a lot of players, and not 2 or 3 players away from reaching the playoffs and winning the Super Bowl. They need bodies. They need to fill needs. And I think that's the reason that I question the trade that Kansas City made.
A lot of the assessments we'll be doing historically of the team's so-called blue chip picks, where teams pick in round 1, round 2, we'll call those the blue chip picks. 1980s in this decade, Detroit's had 14 selections in the first 2 rounds. They've drafted only 1 Pro Bowl player. That was Billy Sims. So they have come up empty in terms of Pro Bowl potential and Pro Bowl performance through this decade. And there might be a little bit of disagreement in that front office exactly where to go. No disagreement about where we're going with 5 minutes waiting on the Detroit selection. Let's get it back to Chris.
All right, Robert, thank you. And so the Detroit Lions, Jerry Venisi, as you mentioned, the GM, would like the DB. The coach, Darryl Rogers, they have some seats to sell. Maybe would like a wide receiver. I have a feeling that a gentleman who has joined us here now kind of likes when teams draft wide receivers number one, at least when he was playing, and that's Joe Theismann. Late of the Redskins, current of ESPN. Welcome aboard. Should Detroit draft a receiver, or do you got to go with a safety who can play there 10 years?
I think because of the amount of receivers that are in the draft, Detroit has the luxury of waiting for the second round to make that pick. I really feel like they have to go, although they have to sell seats, I think they have to go to Benny Blades. I really think they have to shore up that defensive secondary. Last game of the season, they start 4 free agents in the secondary. You're in the division with the Bears. You've got to figure out some way to stop people. I think they have to go defense.
In this day and age, Joe, with a safety that can hit and cover the style that Blades can, he's the only one, along with a Ricky Dixon, who's a corner, that stand head and shoulders up there. So I guess you can't let a guy like that pass.
No, you really can't. You can't give up the athletic ability. This man is a great young football player, and he's made an impact. He can be an impact player for them. They need some leadership. They need some young leadership on defense as well. As far as Jerry Vinicius goes and Darryl Rogers will make the pick. But believe me, we've seen what Vinicius did with the Bears. It's going to be a lot of his input and research that's going to build that defense, and that's where they want to start.
Do you sometimes devise a game plan totally away? Can you devise a game plan? Is Blades that good to say to let's say offensive coordinator, gee, they have Blades back there, we got to go somewhere else? Is he that good?
Not necessarily at the safety position. You can go away from corners. You can set your corners up and stay away from them. But safeties are always going to be somewhere in the play. A lot of times you want to take a safety, you can split a tight end out and say, like we tried to do in the Super Bowl 18, didn't work. We tried to remove their strong safety. Didn't matter. We couldn't do it. So you can't really devise a game plan to take safeties out. It's tough.
Best laid plans of mice and men, right, Jim? So Detroit, you knew they'd spend all 15 minutes for this pick. They're probably still figuring it out.
Well, we have it Blades all the way. As far as the selling seat stuff, I think the fans are smarter than people give them credit for. You don't sell seats on one guy making a fancy run back. You sell seats on victories, and fans understand that, especially in a good football town like Detroit.
A player like Blades, Tommy, can he make linebackers better immediately?
I think so. It puts a lot of pressure on people to do things, as Joe said, outside toward the cornerbacks. Running a 4.3 40, I think Benny Blades is going to be the kind of guy that you will not be able to get away from.
All right, the pick is coming up. Let's go up to the podium, and here's the commissioner. He has it on the card.
Detroit Lions. The Lions select in the first round Benny Blades, defensive back, Miami.
And so we have defense.
Tampa Bay Buccaneers.
1, 2, 3. Bruce to the Falcons. Smith to the Kansas City Chiefs. Benny Blades goes to the Detroit Lions. So certainly the general manager won out. And in Benny Blades, Zim and Tommy, you're seeing a player that a year ago led the nation in interceptions with 10 as a junior. And Benny Blades at 6'1", 216 also was the fastest man on the Miami Hurricanes, running under a 4.4 40. And it's not as if the Hurricanes don't have a lot of players that can fly.
Well, and I think the interesting thing about Blades is that he's not content with knocking the ball down. He's the kind of kid who will go up for you, make the acrobatic catch. He doesn't mind dishing out some punishment. He's the kind of kid that's going to not only affect his position, but every other position in the defensive backfield.
5 interceptions last year. Career interceptions, he had 19. And as you mentioned, Tommy, he can certainly lay the old lumber. I hate to use the cliche, but enforce 5-0. That kind of backs up what we were thinking. Now, Tampa Bay with the 4th pick. Let's go to the podium.
Tampa Bay selects Wisconsin tackle.
The first upset, I figured, and you figured, I think, Dr. Z, that the Buccaneers would give Vinny Testaverde somebody to throw the ball to. We thought that their man would be Sterling Sharp, wide receiver from South Carolina. They go with the top-rated offensive lineman in the draft, where you got to protect the quarterback, too. Let's face it, Paul Gruber, tackle from Wisconsin, certainly not a bad pick, but guys thought that perhaps Vinny wanted someone to throw to.
Yeah, we thought that because he told us that.
Now, let me make that note on my watch. 12:21. It took 21 minutes. That's right. The first lie of the year. And so Paul Gruber, top lineman, goes to Tampa Bay. They hope he plays the old bookend tackle theory for the 10 years. And so now you're seeing the receivers slide down a bit. Now, the Bengals, who, of course, have made we'll talk about Gruber first. He's a guy that got better every year at Wisconsin. Still was was improving as a senior. Definitely the top-rated lineman. Reason?
Well, I'd say the